The New York Knicks started to look like maybe a slightly final version of the team that they might become. The defensive menaces were being defensive menaces. The pick and roll was pick and rolling, and the bench players played fantastic. The Knicks 117-94 over the Wizards. We're getting into it next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks first listen today and every day, whether you're checking this out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit that auto download function on your favorite podcast app or the notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode. I'm Alex Wolfe. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. Also, might I add, let's go, Mets.
Wow.
And he's Gavin Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. And even though I will fully admit to being a little more excited about the Mets making the NLCS tonight than I was about some preseason Knicks action, Gavin, perhaps sacrilege to admit on the podcast, I think that both orange and blue teams had a really good night tonight. Let's put it that way. The Mets making their way to the conference or to the championship series, the NL championship series, and the Knicks securing a much needed preseason whomping of Washington.
And the Yankees won. And the
Yankees won.
We can all be happy. We can all be happy. We're all friends on this show. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. Yeah. I mean, wow. Everybody in New York is just having a great time today. So I think the biggest thing where we could probably start is, I mean, we could get to just how wingy the wing defense was in this game, but I think the first thing we got to talk about is that after looking like they were kind of figuring things out in the first game and like they had only practiced together for a couple days, Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns showed a huge amount of improvement in their chemistry in this preseason game.
Yeah, I think it was pretty clear. Tibbs ran these guys through the paces, and there was some gruff, come on, we only have 3 games. Boston's coming. Ice. Something like that happened. And they were a lot more intense. I would say my main complaint out of last game was like KAT created all the space for everyone and no one attacked it. That changed pretty dramatically in this one. Jalen Brunson was eating up that space really early. So was Mikal Bridges. But Brunson in particular, he just like, he seems like he's in the best shape of his career, looks hyper explosive. And I keep trying to tell if my mind is playing a trick on me and he's actually that much faster, that much more explosive going to the rim, or if he just has that much more room. Like the move he put on Bilal was absolutely nasty. The half spin back. He was in his bag all night. Absolutely tortured Jonas Valanciunas for a step back 3 after getting a switch, getting to the rim over and over again. And then to your point in the second half, just putting on a pick and roll, pick and pop masterclass with Karl-Anthony Towns. Towns did not have a good start to this one, Alex. He missed his first, I think it was 5 shots. He kept trying to ISO, and it was something that I talked about with a spoiler, tomorrow's guest, Jonathan Macri, yesterday, where at times where like you just throw KAT the ball and you say, all right, go create some offense. Like it's going to look a little bit choppy. He's a good post-up threat, does not handle double teams super well, really good driving when he has a 5 on him and he can kind of pump and go. But if he has a smaller player on him or just a really good defender like Alex Sarr is going to be on him, like sometimes it looks a little choppy, and you could definitely tell he was nervous, right? Airballed that 3 in the first half, and then it all got fixed after halftime. 16 points in the third quarter. Tom Thibodeau started spamming the pick and roll with him and Brunson, and over again, like the dance between those two was just beautiful. Started with Jalen having just like this insane wraparound slip to KAT rolling to the rim where he drew 3 guys. Another pick and roll where KAT, like I think Brunson just put Keontae George or whoever, Keyshawn George, sorry, former Knicks draft pick, my bad, OAK, on the wrong foot, and then Valanciunas was too high, and it was over already. KAT was already at the rim for a layup, and then another one where KAT popped and could have gotten a wide open three, but he kind of dipped in a little too far. Then he drifts back out, jab step three, and he was rolling from there. And Alex, we see obviously against just a terrible team in the Wizards, but you get an idea of just how easy it can look when you have two players this good. And as good as the Knicks offense has been the last few years, it's never looked easy, right? You always saw the work, you always saw the effort, you saw the sweat, blood, and tears. It looked easy tonight. Again, it'll get harder, but that's encouraging.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, in addition to all the things you mentioned, that really stood out to me, like if I was going to pick one thing to be like, wow, that was really exciting. Obviously, it wasn't the shooting for KAT tonight, though he got plenty of the looks that that he'll make, once the regular season starts. So that's not an issue. And if he's ultimately going to be taking like 5 to 7 threes per game, I feel like that's great for the Knicks this year. I think that that's what they should be aiming for, to keep that floor as spaced as you want it to be. But the big thing to me was just the passing from him. I think it was very much like understated if you just look at the box score. Like he only ended with 2 assists, but the amount of free throw opportunities he generated for Brunson on just like quick give and goes and looks that he took from up at the top of the 3-point line, where like it was just very impressive in the sense that, this isn't meant to be an indictment of Julius Randle, but Randle had a tendency to, like, whenever he would get the ball, for the most part, unless it was like a bang bang play, if he just got it at the top, you could tell that he wanted to get settled in first and take a couple dribbles, draw the defense in or whatever, get his way into the paint, and then make his pass or whatever. Whereas KAT, there were so many times where Brunson got him the ball, and then he would kind of just like quick, motion like he might take a step inside or motion like he might take a shot, and a split second later, the ball was out of his hands and off to someone, and just with really nice touch on it. I think like he found Brunson a couple times that way. To my recollection, he found OG once that way, I think, as well. OG ultimately wasn't able to finish that play, I don't think, but it was still a nice pass regardless. He was just kind of spreading it all over the floor. I think he might have found Josh Hart one time as well, but it was just really good. Like, it's what you want to see out of this combo. And it was what we were talking about, like when you're just talking about on offense, how you go about replacing an Isaiah Hartenstein but making it even better. You take the passing that he was able to give you, but put it on a more offensively talented player who demands a lot more respect as far as his scoring ability. And all of a sudden, you're looking at like KAT might average 5-6 assists a game this year, I think, if things continue this way, because there's going to be shooters everywhere all the time. As guys continue to get more comfortable, more so than just Brunson, you're going to see more guys making cuts at opportune moments. And, there's even just some basic like give and go and stuff that he and Brunson worked on. There was one early in the game that really popped to me that was just like Brunson kind of threw it to him on like the left elbow of the 3-point line sort of, and KAT just took it there, held it for a second. And then to your point, Brunson looked so fast, like just whipped around that. And it wasn't really a pick. It was kind of just KAT just held the ball out for him, and Brunson just took it and just zipped inside. And I believe that one resulted in free throws. So it wasn't an assist for KAT, but it may as well have been. It didn't matter. Like if you're creating those opportunities and then you get Jalen Brunson shooting 7 of 8 from the free throw line off of opportunities that I think were mostly created by the dynamic with KAT, then that's points that he's adding to the board. In addition to the fact that KAT also got himself 11 free throw attempts in this game. So like, it just goes to show how much attention defenses are going to have to pay to these two guys. And already I think we're seeing just how lethal it could potentially be.
Absolutely. And not for nothing, but I thought KAT's defense was pretty good, or at least he had some flash plays. I'm sure I'm blocking out of my mind like 6 times where guys drove right by him or finished around him. And he did have 5 fouls in 28 minutes, which is a little concerning, and maybe a preview of ills to come and frustrations to come with KAT. But 2 blocks, a steal. I honestly thought he had more before I looked at the box score. Like he had just like an insane recovery on George. Like it almost felt like he teleported there to deny a reverse layup that eventually led to a Mikal Bridges jam. I thought he was pretty active with his hands the whole night. getting a couple strips. Love that he had 12 rebounds, 4 on the offensive end in just 28 minutes. Like he felt he was very active. Part of that was that when Valanciunas was on the floor, the Wizards just didn't really have like a body type to match up with him. Like it was a lot of Sarr, who is I actually really impressed me, and I don't think he's going to be a bust anymore. I think he's actually going to be really good, but he is super skinny and just not big enough to deal with KAT at this point. But I just thought some of the extra stuff that are quote unquote concerns with him, I thought he looked pretty good tonight in those areas.
Yeah, obviously you want to see the fouls get cleaned up, and maybe he was still playing a little loosey goosey. Like I think they were trying some new things and just trying to get him comfortable on defense. Obviously, they came out in this game too. I think that Tibbs definitely gave them some form of directive of like, hey guys, you were a little too passive last game. Like I know it's preseason, but let's rev the engine a little bit. Like let's see what you guys are capable of, because I need to know how to play in this as your coach. So be a little more aggressive tonight. Like if you get in foul trouble, so be it. I kind of got those sort of vibes off of it, where Tibbs wasn't particularly, caring if guys got in foul trouble. But like to KAT's credit too, he played a pretty good amount of minutes. Like him and Mikal
Bridges played whole third quarter. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. Played the whole third quarter and into the fourth. Like pretty impressive stuff. Like both played probably similar to what their regular season minutes could be. Like Bridges with 31 minutes, KAT with 28. So probably a little less for KAT there. But all in all, I thought it was solid. And, maybe that's a good segue into where we could talk about the wing defense, which was just insane in this game. I mean, just the amount of turnovers that the Knicks were able to generate and everything else. So let's come back in just a moment, and in our second segment, give some love to the wings, because they had themselves a game too. But first, I got to let you know about our friends over at Game Time. And maybe the hack gives it away. And maybe me throwing up my Mets towel at the beginning gives it away. I went to a Mets playoff game yesterday. It was amazing. It's the first time I've ever been to a baseball playoff game, and I can thank Game Time for that, because they helped me out in a huge way. I basically was appalled at the price to get in the door for days leading up to the game, and I started to lose hope that I wasn't going to be able to make it in, but I was resolute. I was like, man, I'm just going to keep my eye out. And I'll admit, I was looking at every app that I possibly could to try to find a ticket. And in the end, nobody was even close to Game Time. And then as I waited and I waited and I waited, and let me tell you, the Game Time ad copy always likes to stress, like, this is for the last minute ticket buyer. And that's me. That's what I did. I bought hours before the game and got pointed to a fantastic deal by Game Time. I was refreshing all day to see what tickets would get listed and what I'd be able to do. And I wound up sitting in the 100 levels, like 13 rows back off of the right field home run fence. It was just amazing, an amazing experience, one that I wouldn't have had without Game Time. And I saved a ton of money that I wouldn't have been able to save without Game Time as well. So if you want to save money and potentially go to a playoff game, maybe a Mets game, maybe a Yankees game, whatever, hopefully they're both in the NL and ALCS next week. So fingers crossed there. But download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, Gavin, we're back in to keep talking through this big preseason win for the Knicks, as big as a preseason win can be. I think it's, in the scope of preseason, pretty big, just because we saw a really devastating looking Knicks group here, even if it was against a team that they'll probably put up this same score against a few times this season as well. I don't think the Wizards are very good, and nor do they plan to be. I think they're in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes pretty resolutely at this point. So, and in fact, they might try to actively get worse and trade some guys this year just for
2 years away from being 2 years away, Alex.
Yeah, at minimum, I think, in terms of the Wizards, that draft pick the Knicks are holding on to, not looking fantastic. But at any rate, I think that the big thing, other than the Brunson and KAT combo, which obviously shown so much, mostly on offense, was just this wing defense in this game was just insane. I mean, they couldn't get enough of it on the broadcast, but forcing, I mean, again, bad team, all those caveats, but 30 turnovers for the Washington Wizards in this game. is just nonsensical. That is so many turnovers. And most of them were forced by the guys that figure to be playing the most minutes on the Knicks, which is what you love to see. A totally smothering effort from Mikal Bridges, who took the assignment on Jordan Poole and did a really good job on him. OG Anunoby, Josh Hart. I mean, even other guys like Campaign and Tyler Kolek, and even like Ario Hukporti later on, like all kinds of guys getting their hands in the lane, getting strips. I mean, Bridges and Anunoby just they were like bullies, honestly. Like it was you almost felt bad for watching it. It felt like when you're playing like NBA 2K on rookie mode and the opposing point guard comes down and you just like spam the steal button, and you're just like suddenly you have a guy who's got like a quadruple double on steals because you're just like taking every single ball as the point guard comes down the floor and just demoralizing that poor rookie difficulty guy. It felt like the Wizards were on rookie difficulty in this game, and OG and Josh and Mikal really just kind of took their lunch and ate it right in front of them. It was beautiful and also somewhat sad all at the same time.
It was almost like they couldn't process how long Mikal Bridges' arms were. Like he was like some primordial, like Cthulhu style being, and they were like, yeah, like they refused to believe it. They kept trying to throw these passes, and he would just octopus his way to the ball, and they'd be like, what? How did he get there? Like it wasn't there before, and over and over again, just creating loose balls. It was a thing of beauty. It was balletic watching OG, Hart, and Bridges just, I think the best way to phrase it is like dance together defensively, like switching in and out, like Anunoby Xing out after Hart like helped on someone else's guy. And it's clear that they're going to be able to like just cover a lot of ground and like save Brunson and KAT's collective behinds a lot this season. And look, we've said over and over again on this podcast, like smart teams, certainly in the playoffs, are going to try to take those three out of the game as much as possible and target Brunson and KAT. But if you're putting Brunson on the least threatening player, offensive player on the other team, and you're putting KAT on a center that may or may not be a dominant player, like at a certain point, if you're going to operate that way, you are choosing to take your best players out of the game. And if you do that, you're probably not going to win a lot. And look, there's stuff they can do, right? You could scream with Brunson's guy and like get him on the best player, but all that stuff takes time. There are ways for the Knicks to avoid it. The Knicks can pre-switch. I say all this to say, like, the Knicks really do, like, this is something I talk about a lot with John DeMar, but the Knicks really do have a chance to improve defensively this year, even though they're losing an absolutely elite defensive center and Isaiah Hartenstein, another really good defender, Dante DiVincenzo. If everyone's at full strength, they have a chance to be just elite on that end of the floor. But Alex, I wanted to pose something to you, because this was the second straight game where, and maybe I'm making him out of a molehill, and like people in our comments will complain that I'm bringing this up, but OG Anunoby did not look like full health to me for the second straight game. And it's very, very possible that he is intentionally taking it slow and just does not want to get hurt. But like had another play in transition that normally would be a thunderous dunk, and he kind of slowed down, and I think Sarr caught up and blocked it. And even defensively, like there were two different times where he got back cut, which you just rarely see. Again, this might be preseason levels of effort and focus for a guy who's now a $200 million plus per year player, and arguably like the Knicks this side of Brunson that they can least afford to lose. And yet I'm slightly concerned about it. Maybe like a 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10 on the concern scale, but just something I've noticed so far.
Yeah, I noticed the same thing. And, I kind of took a mental note of that too. Like just the lack of, because, we saw it so much last year that OG has he doesn't really ever go for like a Zion Williamson, like, cock back, tomahawk dunk or whatever, anything like that. But he has sort of an effortless athleticism to him at his best, where, he cuts inside, gets the ball, and then goes up with two hands and just throws it right down. And it's like, he's so long and so like quick with the jump that seems like nobody can stop him ever. And it was a joy to watch last year. It was like one of my favorite things would be seeing him, either crash the lane for an offensive rebound and do that, or just get a quick, underneath pass, sometimes a hook around pass as he was making a cut, and, just finishing that dunk over someone. Super fun with him. And I have noticed he doesn't really seem to have that pop right now. Also, the 3-point shot wasn't there. I'm not so worried about that. Like, I think that'll just come, KAT didn't shoot well in this game either. Neither did Josh Hart. Bridges didn't shoot particularly well from three either. It seems like, the whole team just didn't really shoot well from three in this game. And that's fine because it's even Landry Shamet was only 1 of 7. Like it's just preseason, so that you can write off. I don't think there's anything lingering as far as the elbow and whatever. It does seem like maybe he's just taking it easy as far as the verticality goes. I think you're right. Sort of the optimist outlook there, I feel like probably is correct in that he understands how important he is to the team. He also probably understands like, hey, like, I shouldn't be putting too much strain on myself in preseason. Let's just get the X's and O's down now. And then I could worry about the thunderous dunks during the season, and I'm hoping that's the case. I mean, we won't know until we see him like game 1 against the Celtics to know for sure. Or maybe like, again, whichever game that Tibbs deems like the dress rehearsal game, whether it's the final preseason game, whether it's the Minnesota game, which is the next one up on the schedule, and in my opinion figures to be the most competitive of all of them, at least the one that every player on this team obviously will feel the most motivated by, considering the huge trade that just went down like a week ago. I maybe we'll see it during whatever game that is, the dress rehearsal game, or maybe it'll wait until the game against Boston. But if this does carry on into the regular season, then yeah, I definitely think it's worrisome because he looks significantly less explosive than he did last year. And I want to just believe until further notice that it's all just intentional and that he's just trying not to push it too much just because it's preseason.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want to talk a little bit more about Mikal Bridges on offense because he really impressed me in this one. I want to talk about Josh Hart. I thought he had a really good game. I love the chemistry between hurts to say, the Villanova trio, just a trio. And then we got to get into Tyler Kolek campaign. The backup point guards had another big night. Ariel Hukporti's Knicks debut looked pretty good. So we'll get into all that next on Locked On Knicks. But first, we want to tell you about our good friends over at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. The question is now, where are you going to place that first $5 bet? I've been talking NFL odds all week. We're 2 games in the preseason, Alex. I'm making the switch. I'm mostly going to talk NBA when we talk about FanDuel. I checked the line. The Knicks are still 4.5-point underdogs to the Boston Celtics. Maybe I'm feeling a little giddy after everything we saw tonight. I kind of think the Knicks are going to come out and win on night 1. I would put some money down the New York Knicks. If you're a hater like I am sometimes, you can throw some money down on the Boston Celtics because, again, either way, you're a winner because when you place your first $5 bet, you get $200 in bonus bets. If you want that offer and so much more, that's FanDuel.com. All right, we're back to wrap this one up on Locked On Knicks. I wanted to talk Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart because I was a big fan of both of their games. I love Mikal coming out after he had just a really quiet game, and you were kind of left saying like, dude, we give it 5 first-round picks for you. You gotta cook a little bit. Comes out immediately, gets like a nasty Dirk style fadeaway cross lane runner on Jordan Poole. That was dirty. And I like that he was going at Poole like over and over again because as the Knicks nominal starting 2 guard, unlike when he was on the Nets, Alex, like teams aren't going to really have the benefit of putting their best defender on Mikal Bridges. Like a lot of times he's going to have a size advantage given that OG Anunoby is physically the more intimidating in the two. But Mikal can leverage that even if he's not going to back someone under the rim and dunk in their face. Like he can get to his fadeaway game. He can get to the rim and use his length to finish around someone. And I thought tonight was like sort of a good first step in that. Loved the defensive pressure, obviously. Had a beautiful Euro in transition off of a Josh Hart block. And on a night where it kind of felt like the Knicks were consistently overpassing in transition, I kind of like Mikal Bridges just getting right to the rim and saying, "Now I've been doing this for years now. Like, watch me cook." I thought he was great. I thought Josh Hart just feels a pod after I was questioning, like, all right, do you want to see Juice McBride in the starting lineup? I really liked the look of Hart there tonight. I thought he was just essential to the Knicks rebounding. Feels like every time he gets the board, Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges are just taking off like wide receivers, like Malik Neighbors going on an out route, and Hart through 2 preseason games, he's connected on those like 4 or 5 times. most of them to Bridges, but twice to Brunson. And I think that's going to be a fun theme, the Villanova ESP between those guys. I was just a big fan of how he played, and I can't wait to see those three like share the court together a ton, because that's one of the other benefits of this deal getting done is we're going to have a lot of Brunson and Bridges together. We're going to have a lot of DiVincenzo and Hart together. We weren't sure how many minutes we were going to get with three of them on the court. We know now we're going to get that maybe 25 minutes a night, and that is really exciting.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'm with you. I was going to point out the transition too. That was what popped to me the most was just, I mean, you needed the defense to get there first, right? Which the defense was just so dominant. But every single time that they got a hand on a ball, like there was just an innate sense of like, oh, I see that Josh is about to get that steal, time to leak out. Like, and he just knew, like, it's like he knows what a real steal from Josh Hart looks like, you know, in Mikal Bridges, you know, like, oh, I get it. I got it. I'm going. Yeah. I'm going to be down there in 2 seconds. And Hart knows exactly to look up and be like, oh yeah, there he is. Like right, streak into the hoop. Let's hit him in stride, get a nice, you know, easy 2 points here. And I like that Bridges was so aggressive with that in this game, you know, at getting there. Also 4 free throw attempts. Not for nothing, like the third highest attempts on the team. I liked that he was, you know, trying to get inside a bit and, you know, like you said, busted out like a really nice midi at one point too. So sort of showed off a little bit of everything in his scoring package. You know, again, I won't harp on it, but like the threes just weren't falling for the whole team for the most part in this game. So only 1 of 4 from 3, but like you like what you saw about what shots he was taking, you know, how he was getting to his spots and everything else. And I thought pretty much everybody did a good job. You know, even OG, who we kind of harped on for not like finishing strong or whatever, I thought was finding his spots really well. The offense already kind of seems like a well-oiled machine in many ways. And it's only been like really a week since they've been able to actually start practicing together. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty great to see. I will say too, with Hart, it's kind of interesting to see what his offensive role was in this game. I don't want to say he was invisible in terms of like scoring, but he definitely wasn't looking for shots. And I feel like he's probably relishing that, to be honest, because I think that he enjoys being the connector more anyway. And the guy that could just sort of provide the illusion of potentially wanting to take a shot. And, you know, then driving in, kicking it out to someone, starting a swing sequence, something like that. I think that's just as enjoyable to him as having to go inside and score himself or having to spot up and take a 3 or whatever. And, you know, we saw he took 2 threes in this one. Like one of them looked really ugly. I don't recall the second one, if I'm being completely honest, but, you know, we've seen with him in the past, like he needs reps in order to make shots. So I am sort of curious how that's going to work out. Like, is that ultimately going to end with him having a worse year from 3 because he's just not getting the attempts up, which like we saw last year, he finally started figuring that out once he was putting up volume, like the back half of the season and then into the playoffs. And we even talked about that in his player preview right before the trade happened of like, is that going to affect him that he's not going to have as many shot attempts and it's going to be less of an integral part of the offense this year? Does that affect him? Will it come to bite the Knicks at some point? Like if somehow they're being schemed against in such a way that Josh Hart is the guy getting all the open shots, which we've seen happen in the past, I don't know. Those will be questions for a later date. I would be curious to see if maybe in the next preseason game, if Tibbs makes a point to sort of feature him in a way similar to how they featured like the Brunson and KAT pick and roll in this one. And just were like, let's get all the reps out and figure this whole thing out in this game and start building something here. Maybe they try to start doing that with Josh Hart's offensive role in the next game and sort of set some stones for like how he could get just a little more involved with shooting the ball, because I wouldn't want him to be not relied on at all and then not ever be able to find a rhythm, because I think that's a bad scenario to be in.
Yeah, I'm not super worried about it because I think every defense is from day one of the regular season is going to scheme to allow Josh Hart threes, and that's going to be probably your best bet with this offense. And some nights he'll go 6 for 10. Some nights he'll go 2 for 7. And defenses are going to live with that because we saw it tonight with the Brunson-KAT pick and roll. Once you trap Jalen, your other option is just KAT rolling into space. And the Knicks, if teams just decide to like help off Hart and leave him wide open, the Knicks will adjust and will use Hart as a screener a little bit more. But to your point, like he's also going to have to hit shots. My concern lies with game one. Like to your point, I would love if they spammed it, even if it's self-created threes, because I think in the preseason, like nobody's like really like scheming specifically to their opponent. They're just trying to work on their own stuff. I would try to have Hart shoot 18 threes these next two games, because against the Celtics, I think he's going to probably shoot 8 threes, and that might even be a low number. Like I think Boston's going to play everything to get the ball in his hands with their athleticism defensively. They're probably still going to get a good recovery on it, and they're going to say, hey, Josh Hart, take 15 threes, shoot to your heart's content. If you beat us with that, no pun intended there, we'll take it. But I want to talk backup point guard, Alex. I'm gonna jump campaign, even though he had a great night shooting from distance, 4 for 6, and was generally pretty good again. 4 assists, 14 points in only 23 minutes, and go right to Tyler Kolek, who continues to look ready to be an NBA level rotation player. 15 points, 5 assists, 2 steals for Kolek. What did you make of his night? Because I was super impressed.
I was too. I mean, one thing that stood out to me that raised my eyebrows at first until I started thinking about it was Clyde like invoked Brunson at one point when it came to
multiple
Kolek.
times. Yeah.
And in terms of the footwork and the things that he was bringing to the floor, and it was hard to argue with him. Like with the 15 points, like 6 of 10 shooting in just 17 minutes, like he clearly came out there and like was like, I basically want to be Jalen Brunson, but with this bench unit. And he did a pretty good impression. Like, I don't know. I think he even looks more comfortable scoring the ball than he did in Summer League right now. And it probably has something to do with the fact that the overall cast of characters around him are much more talented. And, it makes it easier to get your shots off when like you're not being crashed in on all the time and the paint isn't clogged. And, granted, he had Hook Porty out there who he had for much of Summer League, but, you have like Precious Achiuwa out there, who's definitely better than Skapintsev. And, you have Campaign out there who's more reliable than like Dwayne Washington Jr. And, suddenly the floor opens up a bit for him. And we're sort of seeing what that can look like for Kolek. He's really already making it a difficult decision between him and Campaign, because if Tibbs ultimately goes with Campaign on night one as the backup point guard, I have to say I wouldn't blame him, because I think Campaign has actually played really well too. But I feel like Kolek might be one of those rare rookies that kind of catches Tibbs' eye, because he's doing all the right stuff right now. I mean, he can give you a similar look off the bench to what Jalen Brunson gives you as the starter. And that's super valuable, because then you can, if he can do that once you hit the regular season, you could have Brunson be your first sub out if you want. And you could bring Kolek in first. Even if that's sacrilege, when that should, in theory, be Deuce McBride's spot, you could bring Kolek in first, have him run with the starters for a little bit, and provide similar things to what Brunson does, but let them, let the other guys cook a little more, and then bring in a Deuce for, Mikal Bridges or whatever, and start slowly filtering in that bench lineup, and then bring Brunson in like right at the beginning of the second quarter or something, and then have him for the whole lead up to the second half, and then like the whole fourth quarter when you hit the second half. So it's an interesting prospect. And I think that Kolek gives you that option a little better already than like Campaign does, who I think Payne is going to play a little better if he comes in like after Deuce has already come in, and they can sort of play off of each other a little bit and all that. Whereas Kolek, I think could, in theory, if things look as good against like a better team than they do against the Washington Wizards, it could give you a more analogous experience to Jalen Brunson and make him a better sub there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would be shocked if Kolek's the backup point guard night one. I just, knowing Tom Thibodeau is always going to default to the vet. I think Kolek is going to spend a good amount of time in the first 25 games or so in Westchester, and maybe won't be brought up unless there's an injury. And I think he's going to get the Deuce McBride treatment, right? Go be the best player in the G League for a few months. I mean, Deuce had to go be the best player in the G League for a year and a half before he got a real consistent chance with the Knicks. But man, I said it during Summer League. A bunch of people have. I'll say it again now. His passing, his court mapping, his manipulation, his ability to run a pick and roll, like all like starting NBA point guard level, not even backup NBA point guard level. Like he is the. I think it's close to be able to say he's the best passer on this team right now. You'd have to give the edge to Brunson just because he's done it for years in the NBA, but I wouldn't be surprised if like just pure passing talent, if you could isolate it on the slider, Kolek would have the highest rating of anyone in the Knicks. Ran a beautiful pick and roll with like Porty where we saw it's a bunch in summer league where like in 2 steps, he's able to throw a ball fake low, get defenders to bite on that, and then go high to feed his big. Had like a nice like start stop lefty flip shot, a Jalen Brunson style like pull up pop on the run that got Clyde going. Like he really liked that. Another one where he spun away from a double, slipped it through 2 defenders to a Porty, just like play after play after play. His shot was one of the big concerns offensively. 6 for 9 from 3 so far this preseason, even though he didn't have a good game tonight shooting the basketball, only 1 for 4 from distance. He's been awesome. I think the biggest thing for him offensively is like his jumper still feels a little bit rushed at times. And I know a lot of people were talking about how his gather has gotten smoother over the summer. That's something I think in Westchester, like with like just a high volume with the basketball, he could continue to get better at. But I think the ceiling with him is just higher than what it is with Campaign. And I'm going to stick with that prediction that he will, by the All-Star break, be the Knicks' default backup point guard. Only other person I really wanted to mention was Ariel Hukporty, who had a nice debut for the Knicks, 7 points, 4 rebounds, 3 steals. Alex, he's huge. He seems fairly coordinated. He actually, like, not that you're going to use him as like a switch guy, but is not a stiff by any means. Like, I think he's moving better and showing more than he did in summer league. And in retrospect, I'm kind of surprised that even though Skappen said was good, that they played someone who clearly didn't have a future on the Knicks over him, because I could see him overtaking Jericho Sims as a third big. Probably not this season, but maybe a year or 2 from now. Like I think that's a nice little investment that I'm excited to see pay off someday.
Yeah, I'll just give him quick props too, and then we can wrap up. But like, he impressed me. I thought that, and I mean, I don't think I was super harsh on him during summer league, but I certainly was like pointing out his flaws, which was like he did look stiff in summer league. If I'm being honest, like that was part of why I didn't think that he was necessarily the best guy to have out there any given game. Like, and you know, I think that he was struggling more in summer league with where to be on defense, and you know how to shade up and cover someone and then find his way back in and drop a little bit. And, you know, that sort of thing, those things seem to sort of vex him. And it led to him giving up a lot of open shots in summer league. And I saw a lot less of that in this game. And maybe just because they were facing a team that had guys with a little more defined roles, like center wise, you know, like with Valanciunas across the way there, Marvin Bagley, like he had a lot of time playing with, you know, they were playing guys that are more paint bound, I guess, that, you know, maybe influenced how he played a little bit. But I was impressed with it. I thought he looked really good. And to your point, he looks a little more spry too. Like I think the conditioning program of training camp and everything is probably already working for him a little bit. And I almost wonder if the Knicks told him, like, after summer league, he looked bigger, like more muscle bound in summer league from what I remember. And now looks like he's slimmed up a little bit. And, you know, maybe they kind of gave him the Mitch treatment of saying like, hey man, like, maybe a little less like bicep and chest day, and maybe a little more just like hit the treadmill, trim up a little bit, like just work on basketball shape more so than getting huge, because you're already like 260 pounds or whatever. So you don't need to be enormous like that. But yeah, I thought he looked really good. I'm intrigued to see if he'll get more minutes. It seems like Jericho Sims only played 2 minutes because he like twisted his ankle. So it seemed like that was the reason that Porty got more run in this game, but maybe he did enough to give himself some more run in the next game, even if Sims is feeling a little better by next time. But at any rate, I think that's about enough on this game. Nobody else really had any standout performances. Sorry, Precious. Sorry, Shamit. Sorry, TJ Warren. But till next time, thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. And check out the episode with Macri tomorrow, where Gavin and Macri are going to preview Karl-Anthony Towns this season. So that's going to be a must listen as well. Till next time, though, thank you all for listening. Peace out, and let's go Mets and Yankees.